Valentine's Day is supposed to be about connection, about reaching out to someone and feeling less alone in the world. On February 14th, 2025, a 16-year-old girl in Gulfport, Florida, did exactly that. She opened an app on her phone and started talking to someone new. His name was Stephen Gress. He was 35 years old. She went to meet him. She never came home. What detectives would uncover over the following weeks wasn't just a missing persons case. It was something far darker. A case that exposed not only a predator, but a circle of silence that allowed a teenager to die while at least 6 people knew she was in danger. This is the story of Miranda Corsette. To understand this case, you first have to understand who Miranda Corsette was, because she wasn't just a name in a headline. Miranda was 16 years old and lived in Gulfport, Florida, a small coastal city right outside St. Petersburg. She had already lost both of her parents by the time this story begins. She was being raised by her grandmother, who was also her primary caregiver. She was a mother herself. At 16, Miranda had an 11-month-old baby. Life had already dealt her more hardship than most people twice her age. She had a history of running away from home, something her grandmother was used to. She would always come back. She always did. Miranda wasn't someone with a lot of support systems around her. She was vulnerable in the ways that predators know how to recognize. Young, isolated, without stable parents, and looking for connection like any teenager would be. That vulnerability is exactly what Stephen Gress was looking for. According to the search warrant affidavit filed in the 6th Judicial Circuit in Pinellas County, and confirmed by court documents reviewed by multiple outlets, including the Tampa Bay Times and WFLA, Gress had a pattern of bringing disadvantaged young women and girls into his home. Neighbors who were later interviewed by detectives confirmed this. One woman who lived in the same duplex told investigators that Gress would, quote, find disadvantaged women and girls who were either homeless or addicted to drugs. He knew who to target. And in February of 2025, he found Miranda on Grindr, an app designed for adults, and began talking to her. Whatever he said worked. On Valentine's Day, she agreed to meet him. On February 14th, 2025, Stephen Gress picked up Miranda Corsette from her grandmother's home in Gulfport and drove her to the duplex he shared with his domestic partner, a 37-year-old woman named Michelle Brandis, at 2708 27th Avenue North in St. Petersburg. That first visit ended normally, at least on the surface. Gress drove Miranda back home afterward. But the next day, February 15th, Miranda returned to the apartment on her own. Investigators believe she did so voluntarily. She had no reason not to trust him yet. That was the last time Miranda Corsette left that building alive. She stayed at the apartment with Gress and Brandis. Days passed. 1 week passed. Her grandmother noticed she had been gone longer than usual, but Miranda had run away before. She waited. February 20th is the date that investigators mark as the beginning of the end. That day, a ring went missing from the apartment. Stephen Gress believed Miranda had taken it. According to the search warrant affidavit, he confronted her about it. She said she didn't have it. He didn't believe her. And that was all it took. St. Petersburg Police Chief Anthony Holloway would later tell reporters at a press conference, from the 20th through the 24th, she was beaten and tortured because they couldn't find this piece of jewelry.
What came next was something no one who didn't witness it directly would know about for weeks. Not the police, not Miranda's family, not her grandmother, who was still waiting for her granddaughter to walk back through the door. Here is the part of this case that I find most disturbing. And in a story this dark, that is saying something. During the days that Miranda Corsette was being held captive and tortured inside that duplex in St. Petersburg, at least 6 people knew. 6 people. Not one of them called the police. Let me walk you through what the court documents say.
A neighbor came to the apartment to drop off a joint for Gress. When she arrived, she saw Miranda sitting in a corner on the floor, wrapped in a towel. The affidavit states the neighbor told Miranda to just give him the ring back so he would let her go. Miranda responded, and I want you to really hear this. She said, "I don't have his ring." The neighbor knew Miranda wasn't free to leave. She saw it with her own eyes, but she didn't call the police. According to the warrant, she later told detectives she assumed the girl was just like the 2 female residents who always come back after being beaten by Gress. She had seen this before, and she did nothing. Another neighbor came by and saw Miranda. Same result. No call to 911. On February 18th, 4 days before investigators believe Miranda was killed, Gress sent photographs to 3 people, 2 men and his own mother. 5 photos in total. According to the warrant, each photo showed Miranda in worse and worse condition. Nude, bruised, battered. The last photo showed her face so swollen that she was almost unrecognizable. His mother texted back and told him to let the girl go. She did not call the police either. Not one of the 3 people who received those photographs contacted law enforcement. Not while Miranda was still alive, not in the 2 weeks after she was reported missing, not until detectives came to them. Meanwhile, Gress had apparently bragged to at least one neighbor about what he was doing. According to the Tampa Bay Times, he told a neighbor, "This little bee stole my ring and won't give it back, so I've been beaten, hooray." He said this out loud to a neighbor who also did not call the police. Miranda told everyone who would listen that she didn't have the ring. She was right. The roommate who lived in the apartment later told investigators she believed Brandis had found the ring, possibly had it the whole time, and held on to it so Gress would have a reason to blame Miranda and get rid of her. Miranda was beaten and tortured for a week over a ring that, according to investigators, she almost certainly never had. And she was surrounded by people who could have saved her. None of them did. Investigators believe Miranda Corsette died sometime between February 20th and February 24th. She was suffocated. Court documents describe the method in detail. A billiard ball was shoved into her mouth, and plastic wrap was placed over her face. On February 24th, the day after or the day of her death, Miranda was reported missing to the Gulfport Police Department. Her grandmother said she normally comes home. She just didn't come back in time this time. What Gress and Brandis did next is something that's hard to process. Before disposing of Miranda's remains, the couple celebrated Brandis's birthday. According to search warrant records reviewed by Law and Crime, they ate at Popeyes and played mini-golf. Then they drove Miranda's body to a home in Largo belonging to Brandis's mother. There, using a pole chainsaw they found in the shed, Gress dismembered the body. Brandis then bagged the remains in white garbage bags. The bags were loaded into a car and driven to Ruskin in Hillsborough County, where they were placed in a dumpster near where Gress's grandparents lived. By the time police located that dumpster, it had already been emptied and taken to a transfer station. From there, everything inside, including Miranda's remains, was sent to an incinerator. Miranda Corsette's body has never been recovered. Her grandmother could not bury her. On March 5th, 2025, Stephen Gress was arrested. Not for Miranda's murder, not yet, but on unrelated charges. He had pointed a harpoon at Brandis and was found in possession of drugs. He was placed in custody. The break in the case came on March 6th. A man approached a police officer and said he had information about a possible kidnapping and homicide involving a missing teenager. He said Brandis had told him what they had done. Detectives took over immediately. On March 7th, Gress was charged with kidnapping and first-degree murder in connection with Miranda's death. On March 8th, Michelle Brandis turned herself in. She was also charged with first-degree murder. As the investigation deepened, the picture of Stephen Gress that emerged was one of a man with a long history of violence and instability. Neighbors described him as abusive. The roommate told police he would purchase animals from Craigslist and kill them. Police call logs reviewed by Fox 13 showed that law enforcement had been called to that duplex 7 times since January 1st of that year for domestic disturbances, welfare checks, domestic battery, and assault. None of those calls came during the period when Miranda was being held captive. In November 2025, a judge found Gress competent to stand trial. Prosecutors have filed a notice of intent to seek the death penalty for both Gress and Brandis, citing the, quote, especially heinous, atrocious nature of the crimes. Miranda's estate has also filed a civil wrongful death lawsuit against Grindr, arguing the app failed to implement adequate age verification that would have prevented a 35-year-old from accessing and contacting a 16-year-old girl. As of late 2025, a federal judge sent that case to arbitration. The trial is still pending. Miranda Corsette was 16 years old. She had already lost more than most people will lose in a lifetime. She was raising a baby. She was living with her grandmother. She was just a kid, and she was trying to connect with someone. What happened to her was not a freak accident. It was the result of a predator who had been operating the same way for years, bringing vulnerable people into his home, and a community that had normalized the violence coming out of that duplex for so long that no one thought to make a single phone call. If you take anything from this story, let it be this. If you see something wrong, call. Don't assume someone else will. Don't assume it's not your business. Miranda was surrounded by people. Every single one of them decided it wasn't their problem. She did not survive that silence. As always, stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one.